Talk a bit about self-leadership. Here I am on a TEDx stage talking about self-leadership, and self-leadership is what I've written a couple of books on, and I want to give you the definition of self-leadership, which is the practice of intentionally influencing your thinking, feeling, and actions to achieve your objectives. So it is the practice of intentionally influencing your thinking, feeling, and actions towards your objectives. Now, I wrote the 2012, the red-covered book with Dr. Anna Kazan. Again, I love collaboration with women. I want to make sure I've always got both sides of the perspectives. In 2016, I wrote a smaller handbook, and if you guys are interactive this afternoon, I will make available a PDF download of that. But here's my frame if you're interactive. So far, so good, but let's just crank up how quickly you volunteer. Is that okay? So, the absence of self-leadership. So I've just given you the definition of self-leadership. What do you think is the absence of self-leadership? In the chat box for me. You've probably seen people who have not demonstrated self-leadership. There have been times when you haven't demonstrated self-leadership. Very good. So Shweta went straight ahead and said, indecisive. Very good. Doubt oneself. You're off and running. Beautiful. You're at the races. Everybody wants the PDF download of this book, I can see. Lack of confidence, low self-esteem, easily strayed. Lack of lead by people. Okay. No courage to stand up. Yes, you're getting it. Beautiful. A few more and then we'll switch. Type away. Type away. No taking risks. Yes. Okay, very good. Now you're understanding. So sometimes the best way to understand something is the opposite. Afraid of taking initiatives. So no self-leadership. Gap between thoughts and execution. Very good. All right. So here's a few things that I added before I started. Reactive. Randomness, blame, and the victim mindset. If you have any of these, that's a demonstration of the lack of self-leadership. And you can't lead others unless you first lead yourself. Now let's see how you lead yourself. I've got another thought experiment for you. And in this experiment, imagine you walk into your kitchen and you're a little bit hungry, and there's a bowl of fruit on the kitchen cabinet. There's an apple and a banana. Now, you find yourself automatically reaching for one of these, the banana or the apple. Which one do you reach for? In the chat box. What do you automatically reach for without any thought at all? Okay, I got a question. What is randomness in leadership? Banana, 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 apple, banana, 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 apple. Okay. You can stop typing. Those of you who've typed early, thank you for that. So the premise here is you walked in and you made a decision. The thought experiment here is, when did you make the decision? When was the decision to choose the apple and the banana made? Because here's what we know. Somebody says, I don't like either. Okay, it's a thought experiment. Pick one. All right. Anyway, so when's the decision made? Now, what we know is that when we put people in brain scanners and we get them to do tasks, we know that their muscles are activated. The motor cortex of the brain is activated before the prefrontal cortex is even aware of the decision. We make a story after the event why we made the decision, but we've actually made the decision before we were aware of it. Now, this is a bit of a paradox because I just told you that self-leadership is the practice of intentionally influencing your thinking, feeling, and actions towards your objectives. And so that includes a level of decisiveness. And yet, here I'm saying that research in neuroscience and psychology is saying we have nowhere near as much free will as we think we have. The decision over the apple and the or banana could have been made at university, right? You had an experience. Could have been made at school. It could have been made at kindergarten, right? It could be part of your DNA, right? That you need more potassium than other people, and therefore your unconscious mind is telling you, grab the banana, you need the potassium. I mean, the decision could go all the way back to the Big Bang. There is a chain of events that causes you to make that choice. So we have no free will, therefore we have no self-leadership. Actually, it's quite the opposite. See, now that you're aware of this thought experiment, you can become intentional. If you chose the apple, you could set an intention that next time you'll choose the banana and vice versa. If you chose the banana, next time you can choose an apple. Now, apple and banana, not a big issue. But what about the next situation that you're going to come to? You know, typically I use the example of driving a car. You know, if you're driving a car and somebody cuts in front of you in traffic, do you react? Do you get angry? Right? You honk your horn, or do you swear under your breath? Right? But you could, that's a reaction. You've responded before you've even thought about it. But what if you were to set the intention that next time somebody cuts in front of you, you realize they don't know who you are. They didn't do it to you. They don't know who you are. What if you were to choose to be empathetic and realize, hey, they didn't see me. They must be in more of a hurry than me. All right? Maybe something terrible's happening. Maybe they're on the way to the hospital to see a loved one. And you say, go with grace. And you wish them the best. Now, that's not easy to do. I mean, I don't like people cutting up in front of me in traffic. But I've practiced doing this. And I've said, next time somebody cuts, I'm going to say, go with grace. You know? Now, what else could you make an intention? And I'm going to keep coming back to this as we go, because in courageous leadership, with the self-leadership underpinning, you set an intention. Next time there's a meeting and people are talking, and you have an idea and you wait until it's your turn, but by the time it's your turn, the conversation has moved on and you didn't get to contribute, the decision is not made in that room. The decision is made before you even went to that room, got on that Zoom call. I'm going to contribute. I'm going to add value to this meeting. I'm going to speak up. Because we know, right, that there are men in the room, and men are really good at taking up space. Men are very good at talking, even when they have nothing to say. Right? And you know, they can be dismissive of you. They can discount you, disregard you. And you can be dismissed and disregarded, and then they can get in and be a narrative in your head that can frame you, well, I'm not valuable. But you are valuable. You know you bring value to the organization. So if you add an intentionality to the value and you make that decision today, that next time you're going to behave differently, this is the beginning of self-leadership, intentionality. So intention is the choice of being the driver or the passenger. You recognize Jason Statham here driving from the movies. Obviously he is my cousin because you can see the familial likeness, right? I'm joking. All right, okay. So, are you the driver or the passenger? And from that analogy, as you know, being the passenger sometimes is nice. Somebody else takes the responsibility. But when it comes to your work, your career, it's important that you are the driver, right? Now, you know this quote from Spider-Man, with great power comes great, type it in the chat box, with great power comes great responsibility. Yes, with great power comes great responsibility. And I'm here today to tell you, with great responsibility comes great power. When you start taking ownership of your life, when you start being intentional, being the driver of your life, you become more powerful. With great power comes great responsibility, and with great responsibility, ownership, comes great power. With self-leadership, we have more influence in our lives. Yes, we are reactive to things because of the programming from the framing of our birth and our education and our ethnicity and our gender, and all of those do frame us. But now we know to recognize the frame, we can step back from the frame and step back in with intentionality. This allows us to lead ourselves and become a role model to lead others. So, take a moment now, let's have a reflection moment. And I hope you have a notebook with you to take some notes from my session today, or you're using whatever electronics devices. But I have set this up today to talk about frames, how you framed yourself, how you framed others. I've talked to you about self-leadership intentionality. Take a moment to think, next time, go beyond the apple and banana, go beyond the traffic. What is the situation that you will intentionally change your response now? Make a decision now. So let's just have 30 seconds of quiet reflection and commit it to paper preferably, or open a notepad on your computer and quickly type in, I will change. I intentionally change. Right? The measure of my success is not the feedback form at the end, the happy sheet as we call it in the industry. My measure of success is if you change things in your life. Right? I get paid twice. I get paid for speaking and coaching, and then I get paid again when people send me an email saying, hey, I attended your session and I've changed this and I'm getting these results. And people send me emails or connect with me years later and say, you won't remember me, but I was in your session and this is what's happened for me. And obviously that makes me feel really good. Now, one of the things that I do as a coach is I get people to ask that question, what's the best version of myself? How can I be better? And sometimes it's good to go to people. You could go to your boss and say, how could I be a better leader? How could I step up? You could go to your colleagues and ask that question. And instead of feedback, this is feed forward. It's a term that was coined by my friend, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. You may have heard of him. He wrote the book, What Got Me Here, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Now, one day I'm asking these two, how can I be a better dad? Now, the reason I asked the question is I had set an intentionality to be a better dad. And at the time I asked them the question, it was a time I was a single dad. Their mother had decided I wasn't the man for her and taken off, and I was a single dad for a period of time. And so I'd set this intention to be a great dad. But of course I was a busy guy. And I'm walking these two young people to the bus stop early in the morning, and I said to them, hey, how can I be a better dad? Now, Tasha knows her own mind, and she said, well, you could get me a bigger room. And I went, okay, fine, let's see what I can do about that. But Nathan, he's the deep one. And he said, well, you could not work so hard and come to more of my school things. Oof. It's like a spear through my heart. Because on that very day was his school swimming carnival. And this is where values and intentionality help you make decisions. When he said that, there was no argument about whether I went to the business meetings or not. I called my secretary and said, cancel those meetings. I'm going to my son's swim meet. Because intentionality and value let me know what the right thing to do was. And I went to his swim meet, and he saw me there, and his face lit up. He was super happy. I watched the first race. It was 25-meter freestyle. He swam into the lane rope. Now, I'm an ex-surf lifesaver, water polo player. Swimming does not pass through the DNA for some reason. He was terrible. He came in last. But I rushed down, I gave him a hug, said, well done, son. And he didn't care whether he won or lost. He cared that I was there. And I went back into the stands, and I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe I should get him a swim coach. And the other dad was jogging around because his son had won, and I said, well done, sir, well done. But then he did another race, and it was the 25-meter breaststroke, and he won. And I rushed down, I was so proud of him. I said, well done, well done. But I noticed he was no more or less happy than when he lost. That wasn't what was important. What was important was that I was there. And I realized my intentionality had driven my decision to make the right behavior that matters. And that's what I wish for you, that you set the intentionality so you know the right decision. Because when you set the frame, you win the game. And because you've been such a great audience, if you go to selfleadership.com/book, you can download my PDF, and that'll help. Because how do we stay engaged with reality around any road signs that you recommend to scan or look for? Yes. The road sign to look for is, am I running my narrative or am I running the world's? Am I running what I believe? I loved one of our participants today said, I believe I'm a free soul. Now, there are things that say, no, you're restricted, you can't do that, but you choose. Thoughts matter. When you put a thought into the causal chain, it changes the way you turn up and it changes results. Yeah, the world, isn't it? Stuff's going to happen. Stuff's going to challenge you, right? I faced, and I'm not talking too much about my life, I faced some real crises in my life where, whether it was money, whether it was health, whether it was relationship, and it can threaten who you think you are. But when you are humble, you are grounded. I know what I'm good at. I know what I value. I know what my intentions are. And when I get the feedback from my kids like that, when I get the feedback from my clients that I'm doing the right thing, that's self-affirming. But when I'm having people say to me, well, there's something else, and I'm going, no, I need to trust my own internal compass on this. I'm the driver of my career, of my life, not the passenger. And that's how I stay on. So feel free to download. There's no charge to that. You will enter a database, but the unsubscribe button does work. If you never want to hear from me again, click unsubscribe. I don't want to spam anybody, but if you're interested, please connect with me on LinkedIn. There's lots of free content comes through there. I will happily accept your LinkedIn requests.